Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
All right, welcome. So it's great to introduce the session on privacy and context. I'm Ben Zorn. I co-manage the Research and Software Engineering Group here in Microsoft Research in Redmond. I'm really happy to talk about privacy today. I think it's one of the most important topics. It's on a lot of people's minds. A lot of things in the news are making us aware that information about us is being stored in places and being used and accessed in ways that we didn't expect. And I think today we're going to hear about some of the technologies and ideas that take this work forward and really give us a greater sense of privacy. We start with Jaeyoon Jung, who got her PhD at MIT in 2006. She worked at Intel Labs in Seattle until 2011, where she joined MSR. And she works in the areas of privacy, mobile systems, and devices for the home. And she's going to talk today about teens and parents' perspective on surveillance. So please welcome Jaeyoon.
Thank you. Well, thank you. OK, so this presentation is based on this kind of exploratory research that I did with these two wonderful collaborators. Blaze is, he's a student at Carnegie Mellon, and Stuart is sitting there. And if you want to look at sort of full paper, you can go that URL and then look at it. But today, I'm hoping that this will be some kind of conversation rather than me telling you what we found, because this is just kind of, I feel that this is a kind of very interesting sort of observation that we made, but we haven't sort of found solutions for this problem. OK, so the context, smart home of the future. I don't know whether some of you have been to Microsoft's Envisioning Center, but we have that wonderful room in the next building that you can see kind of this futuristic kind of home. That some of them are Wizard of Oz. I guess it's on purpose. They're just they're showing, what can be done, regardless of technologies existing out there. In any case, this is like one, picture of this envisioning home, showing that this guy is cooking, and then this smart cooktop is showing recipe, and then he can also talk to those chefs through a microphone and stuff. So this is kind of one kind of imagination of smart home of the future. And so we are not there yet, but I don't know, maybe some of you have been to Best Buy and those places. But there are lots of now smart devices coming to the market. And that's Philips, this Hue, this color-changing light bulb, and Nest thermostat. And this is a video doorbell, and it's a programmable door lock. And these are just a few examples. But there are really a lot of devices coming to the market with sort of connectivity to the internet and then programmability. So it's very exciting. And there are lots of devices, but I'm going to sort of narrow them down into a few kind of home security-related devices. So for instance, this is those two devices among those. And those are kind of appealing to customers, the market says, because as you can see, there's a kind of clear benefit of these devices. It's not just something that, I don't know, that makes your house cool, right? But it's a very clear benefit of, you can, with this door lock, sort of with the keypad, you no longer need to carry your key, and then you don't have to worry about being locked out. And also with this kind of connected video doorbell, you can also do kind of remotely sort of monitoring who is at your doorstep and so on. So this is great. And not just this, with those devices, you can really secure your home. So this is just our mock-up. But you can imagine that with those devices like doorbell and connected door locks and security cameras, you can really find out who is coming, who is at your doorstep at what time, and with whom and all these things. I mean, this can be really awesome. And actually, some of those devices, they use these as this kind of auditing feature as a sort of marketing selling point. So this is good, right? Oh, and then there's all kind of additional benefits of having these detailed security logs from those smart devices in the home. But as the title alluded, these audit logs can also reveal sort of things that you might not want your household members to know. So for instance, like teenagers arriving home after curfew, or my weekend, I guess not at night, maybe not, but when the parents are away, maybe sneaking in friends, or at night sneaking out. This could be all captured by this kind of the security logs. And also, let's say that you bought something like surprise gift for your children, and then maybe that's captured by this camera, and then it could be if that kind of log is available to anyone in the household, then there may be no longer surprise, right? I guess I don't want to go with like like domestic affairs and stuff, but you could imagine that this kind of solution designed for home security can cause some of the privacy issues in the home. Okay, and next. So, there could be lots of issues, but in this study, we focused on the impact of these systems on the relationship of between teenagers and parents. So teenagers, we all gone through that stage, right? We all desire freedoms. Also this is the kind of age that people sort of try to like push the boundaries a little bit. And now they feel like they're adults. They should do they're on their own way without parents, without getting approvals from parents. And then the parents, right? That's the time that parents like start really getting worried about teenagers, and also the parents are the ones who worry more about home security, right? These are the people, I guess the people who have to pay mortgage, and also if something gets stolen, then it's the parents who have to pay. Okay, so what's kind of specifically what did we do for this issue? So these are the two kind of big research questions that we wanted to explore. So one is, like I said, what's the impact of this kind of in-home surveillance technologies or security monitoring technologies on parent-teen relationship? And then the second one is, if there is an impact, bad impact, is there anything that we can do? So as a sort of, people who are designing these systems, from either like kind of interface design, or this some kind of technical solutions, is there anything that we can do to reduce negative impact? So those are the two research questions that we explored. And then for the number one, we started with a user study. So we recruited participants. We recruited 13 teenagers, those who are entering like 9th to 12th grade, and then 12 parents of teenagers. But note that these parents of teenagers and those teenagers, they are not from the same household, and we did it intentionally. And I'll explain this later, why we did it. And then what we did was we brought those people, those participants, to Building 99 for an hour of interview. And then that was done like 2 years ago. And then we used kind of parallel scripts for teenagers and parents. I mean, there's questions that we asked to teenagers. Some of them are the same questions, but some of them are, like for teenagers, it's from their perspective, and parents, from parents' perspective, but it's in this kind of parallel way. And then after we did this study, we analyzed this interview. The interview was all recorded and transcribed, and then we used this standard methods for qualitative data analysis. Okay, so let's say that you are my participants. So you're here. You're in this conference room. Maybe you're talking to me or Stuart or Blaze. And what we did was we first showed this commercially available door locks. So we got a few advertising materials of those connected door locks. So the thing is, so we're trying to recruit participants who already used those door locks and connected door locks and cameras and so on. But there are not many of them who already have those installed in their home. So to help them familiarize with the system, we asked them to look at this, this marketing materials, and then we talked about the pros and cons of those door locks and stuff, and then we show them three possible interfaces of auditing those security events in the house. And then we asked them to choose which one that they would like to have in their home. And then, after they made a choice, we had a discussion about this choice, and then we also asked people about existing methods that they used, monitor their kids' activities, and so on. So that's kind of roughly the structure of the interview. Oh, and so a few kind of methodology highlights. When we recruited participants, and then also when we presented these materials and we made a conversation, we never mentioned privacy. We just said that this is a study about smart homes, so not to prime these participants. And then before we designed this study, we were not experts of these parenting relationships, but we found out that there's a huge literature, in social studies about, looking at these parent-teen relationships and also parenting styles and all these things. So, reviewed some of those, and then we also came up with those questionnaires. I guess we also used the questionnaires that were recommended by those experts to assess kind of their parenting style and so on. So that was also part of the interview. And then number 3, so these teen participants, they had, not all of the, so also there's one of the rules of this, interviewing these teens, we needed to get parents' consent. So this teenager, when they came to our study, the parents came along and they had to sign consent and so on, right? And so first of all, we wanted to protect those teen participants, right? So that these parents knew, and then some of the teen participants were children of our colleagues. So when those people will read our paper, right? And then we wanted to really protect those participants. So I guess as you will see later on, so we kind of anonymize their quotes and so on, so that we can protect their identity. And also, because of that reason, we didn't use these parents and teens from the same household, right? But because if we have done it, then parents would know what kind of questions that their teenagers would have been asked to answer, and they could prove them for that. Okay. Next. Oh, and then participant demographics. So the kind of age and gender distribution. You can read from that. And the household composition, we didn't try to, balance on that, but we got a little diverse kind of participants. There's a teenager who lived with their guardian, not with a parent, and there were a few single parents, and there were participants who lived with their significant others. And although we didn't get participants who have this, have been using these smart door locks and stuff, these are most of them were kind of very technologically savvy. So so when they looked at this, door lock advertising materials, they say, oh yeah, I've seen this on TV, or oh, my friend has this, or that kind of thing. So that was good for us. Okay, so this is the marketing material that people presented to the participants, and this is the question that we asked. Like, how would you feel about having this kind of internet-connected door locks installed in your house? What features would you use, and anything that, and then they will answer, like some features, right? And then we ask, anything that concerns you or other members of the household, if you were to have this kind of door lock. So we asked this question, and many participants, they sort of thought that these door locks are appealing, these are convenient, they sort of got this right away, and this kind of automation capabilities, people sort of came up with a rule like right on the spot, say, oh, it'd be nice if whenever door lock detects that someone's home, and then the AC gets turned on, or something like they were turned off whenever the door gets like locked or something. And then only like 3 of the participants said, oh, it's not that interesting. Okay, and then, so although they sort of generally they like these features, some of them had concerns, the kind of usability and reliability. Like, how about if I forget the code? And what if, this thing loses Wi-Fi connectivity? What if that, then how would I get into the home and so on? Oh, and then interestingly, a lot of people, many of the participants were worried about hacking as a concern. And since it's connected, what happens if it gets hacked and so on? Oh, and then there's some participant actually mentioned this shoulder surfing attack, but they didn't use the term, but essentially that's what they said. Oh, and then also a few participants were worried about this PIN code sharing. I mean, the key, of course, you can duplicate a key and so on, but it's a kind of more of a hassle. But the code is much easier to share, right? So they were worried about unauthorized access, unauthorized sharing code with unauthorized people. Okay. And then, so participants had a time to really sort of think through of these pros and cons of these door locks. We asked this question. So, if your family were to install internet-connected door locks, which of these 3 kind of security interfaces would you like to have, and why? So, number 1 option is photo lock. Look at this. And number 2, the option is text locks. So the difference is it doesn't show these pictures at the doorstep. And then number 3, is no lock. So maybe you don't want this kind of lock. So let me just do a straw polling. What would you like? So how many of you want to have a photo lock? 1, 2, okay, let's say the 10. And the text lock? I don't know, 5. And no lock? About 5 or 6. Okay. And then I don't know, the drum, right? Participants. So all 11 parents, they say they prefer photo lock. And then they said that the reason is for safety. And one person said, oh, you could see who actually been in the most time. And, I also want to verify, my son is coming home alone or not, right? So it's kind of safety reasons. And then among these 11, however, 3 sort of mentioned about some concern about surveillance, especially the parent 2 said it's just a human nature thing that nobody likes when people keep tabs on anybody. But the thing to notice is, although these people mentioned these concerns, and then they say, oh, my kids might not like it if we had these systems with a photo lock. But nonetheless, they chose to have photo lock. And then teens. What would you think that teens would have chosen? Okay, so 6 out of, I forgot, maybe 13. So they chose photo locks. I mean, these seem to be very good good teen with good children. They said, oh, this is for the same reason, like to see kind of, to make, for the safety of the home. And then 3 chose text locks and saying that, oh, camera is not necessary. It's like a photo with photos. It seems like invasion of privacy, like kind of Big Brother kind of thing. So the privacy was a reason. And then 4 teens, they said no locks. And my favorite quote is, this is like parents going psycho, right? Like, no way. Okay, so now we see kind of this kind of differences, right? So potentially this could cause tensions. Oh, and then we also asked some questions about, this is only to the, this is to the parents, about notifying children on data collection. So, so this is about, so, so if this is really about surveillance, right? When we sort of talk about privacy, we say, when you have surveillance system, at least you should notify that something is going on, right? But this is kind of the like privacy 101. So we asked, whether parents would think this way. And, well, like 9 out of 11, they said positively, said, okay, so yeah, I'll let my children know that, our home has this system. But two parents said no. Like, one person said, oh, trust but verify. That's kind of the motto that I have. Right, so this person. And then, right, so she's a single parent, and then she said, she wanted to verify everything her son says to her through this. And so after going through this sort of exercise, we asked our participants about, their sort of existing activities. And one is about, do your children have a curfew or daily time limit for using computer and so on? And do you know their Facebook passwords? And those are the questions. And do you monitor online activities? And are you a Facebook friend with your child? These are the kind of questions that we asked. And the parents, so they said, there's kind of, their practice is they put family computer in the living room, and so that they can sort of, take a look what's going on. So that's kind of the best practice right now. And then many of them sort of complained about kind of the kind of usability issues of those parental control features of browser and so on. Oh, and then texting was a big issue. So for teens, they say they're texting, it's their private data. They don't want their parents to go through all this. But there are many parents who said, they feel that they have a right to go through the text of their children if there's some issues coming up. Oh, and then, so we also asked only to the teen participants whether they had any instances whether they sort of tried to circumvent parents' rules, or they know anyone else who is doing it. And it's very interesting. Like one teenager said, oh, so he goes to his girlfriend's house a lot, and then he said if his girlfriend's parents install this kind of system, then he said, oh, I have to yell like, oh, Rapunzel, so that he can sort of climb up rather than going through a door. And then like some teen participant mentioned, oh yeah, I know a friend who has this kind of home system, but you know what? If you put this the contact sensor like on some metal, it doesn't work. So they know how to disable the systems, and then they're actively doing it. So the lessons. So it's a kind of this paper has a lot of kind of very interesting kind of juicy codes. But the lesson number one is, so currently there are a few systems that provide this kind of auditing logs, but it doesn't give customers choice, right, of granularity of logging and so on. It's kind of it's marketed at parents. And so what we are saying is, if this kind of system were to become really popular, then it could cause tension between teens and parents. And secondly, and not just that, not just causing some tensions, and it would result in kind of reduced security because, like I said, the children would try to circumvent this or try to sort of disable some of the things. So the big lesson from this thing is, teens are not your typical adversary, right? You can't really design a system, or you can't really apply the system design for this kind of attackers and bad guys, and then just apply this to in the home setting. And so these are the sort of kind of lessons. And what can we do? And so we talked about a few ideas there. So in terms of kind of interface design, So these are some of the ideas that we discussed, some kind of coarse-grained logging, and also giving teens some sort of notifications whenever this kind of alert gets generated to parents and so on. So these are the things that kind of would be interesting to explore. And then as a future work, we had kind of two sort of looking at that point. One is, so the thing is, this kind of attitudes of privacy changes over time and over technology. And so, what's the kind of, how this change over time? So that would be kind of interesting to see with some large-scale study. And then second one is, this study is about, it's all like in the lab. We just ask them questions, and it would be really fascinating to see how this kind of audit logs are used, abused, or circumvented in practice. So that's another thing. Okay, so time's up, and I'm done.
Okay, we have a few minutes for questions. So if you have a question, I guess I'll give you do we have a second mic? Okay, yep.
Any questions?
So let me ask the first question. So do you have such a device on your home? And if so, how do you set the logging features?
Right, so that's a good question. So I have, Stuart and I, we have 9-year-old and 6-year-old, so they are not teenagers yet. And we have a drop cam. And so it's facing outside. We are not capturing anything. Since our kids are younger, they don't seem to mind at all that I can see, like whenever someone is at the doorstep and so on. So I have a full access, and then it's like a photo log, right? So, but I don't know how this thing will change as my kids become old. Yuri? Yeah.
I suspect that here, like in quantum physics, the measuring changes the world. So I suspect that these teenagers would give different answers to their friends in, relaxing with a beer than to you.
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So, one of the interviewers was the intern student, Blaze. So he's much younger than and I, and we were telling him, and also he tried to kind of be friendly to these teen participants. And then we asked them, and then at the end of the interview, we told them, to tell us anything that they are not comfortable sharing with us. And so we're sort of trying to create a sort of situation that makes teens comfortable to talk to us. Yeah, but that's a good question, right?
The statistics show there were the majority told us things they probably wouldn't want their parents to know. So there may have been the fraction is fairly small who didn't say anything their parents wouldn't want us to hear. So.
Okay, let's thank the speaker.
Thank you.